Welcome back to New Money. This evening we're discussing retirement and financial planning. My guests, Melissa Dubé and Jordan Toy. And if you'd like to email, you can email me on info@anchorcapital.co.za. Before we went off air, Melissa, what do you think of this two-pot system? I mean, I know there's a moral situation.
Yeah.
You know, if I can't put bread on my table, don't tell me about retirement savings. But these are people who are working, they are contributing to funds, they are getting a salary. Yeah. How do you feel about it? What advice would you give to someone if they came and said, I'm a bit short of money, but what do you think?
I think we can all sympathize. We've been through a tough time, you know, be it through 2020 and COVID and the havoc that caused on, you know, our retirement funds, on the economy and so forth. So we can certainly sympathize that families are having a difficult time. And so this is, you know, when one is given access or freedom, you need to treat it carefully. I think more than ever, it's important to have advice. You know, firstly, you need to know, am I on track as far as my retirement funding is concerned? Because
and most people are not on track.
Most people are not on track. I mean, the statistics are terrible. So I think more than ever, you're going to need to make sure that you know your numbers. You know, approach a certified financial planner to understand where you are and how much room do you have to be making a withdrawal. It certainly does not replace the need for one to have an emergency fund outside of your retirement fund, and I think, you know, that's where people may get lost a little bit to say, oh well, here's money that I can access. You do still need to have your own emergency fund, you know, invested in a bank account, in a money market account fund or something like that, where you can access it quite readily. This system, one needs to use very, very carefully under a lot of, you know, after some consideration, and when you are satisfied that you have nowhere else to go.
Jordan, some maths work here. So now we're talking about, firstly, quick comment on whether you are for this and whether the dangers, but what impact does that have on retirement?
So I think Pelesa summed it up very, very well. For me, I think it is a question of emergency needs. I understand that, you know, there may be needs for these funds, but I think it's a list of priorities, and as Pelesa has mentioned, emergency savings should still form a part of your plan. And yeah, it should be exclusively used in very, you know, emergency scenarios, as you need to preserve funds for retirement, because that problem will rear its head again down the line. Sorry, Bryan, what was the second part of the question?
I just wondered what impact is, because I've done some calculations. A 35-year-old taking money out, getting a 9% return of 30,000 Rand. At retirement, the number will be 640,000 Rand less on their retirement fund. Yeah. Now, I know you've got to take into account what is 640,000 Rand more, but one expects retirement funds to do better than inflation, and that's been a problem. As you said, please, the last 5 years, retirement funds have not done that much better than inflation. Although, when you get your retirement funds, you get a slightly different tax break. You're not going to pay tax at your marginal rates. You're going to pay tax at the formula, which is up to, I think it's 660, no, what's it now?
550.
550 tax-free,
yes.
And 660, you 550, the first 550, then 18%, then 27%, then 36%. So if you're paying marginal rates at 45 and at retirement your tax rate is lower, there's a cost to you that you won't receive in retirement. But just a brief comment, I mean,
yeah, I mean, 100%. All of those specific scenarios and, you know, the tax implications have to be considered. But I think just at a more general level, if you look at something, I know, you know, the power of compounding gets mentioned a lot, but I think it's often still underappreciated. You know, a small withdrawal now has an outsized impact on the ending value in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think just at a very general level, you know, what you think might be a small withdrawal now has a very significant impact on ending values when we look at the growth you can earn on growth and so on. Just speaking in the sense of the compound growth you can earn on investments.
Yeah, well, I've got an email here. I'll give it to you, Pelesa, from Julian. It says, can I access my savings as I'm retrenched? Yes, you can. You can certainly take your funds if you resign, if you're retrenched, any of those reasons. You can take your money subject to the tax tables. But I just want to talk to you about one of the main problems that people do not have enough savings is because they do not preserve their retirement amounts when they withdraw. And how many people today work for one company for 40 years? It's not the norm as it may have been 30, 40 years ago. So people, when they resign from a fund, when they leave a fund, what in your opinion, what type of percentage of people are actually preserving and what percent are, well, the difference is actually taking the money?
Yeah.
What is your experience? What are you finding?
I'll take you back a little bit. So I guess with Treasury, calculating and coming to this system as it's been currently structured, there were some actuarial numbers run in the background. And, the outcome, or at least what they put out, was to say, actually, on the overall, retirement fund members will be better off with this system. So in other words, making preservation mandatory. Now, that's because we're coming off a very low base. Because like you say, when people resign or are retrenched, what we find most of the time is that they withdraw their retirement benefit in full. Now, I wish that money was going towards something, worthwhile, like paying off your house or starting a business or things like that. But most of the time, it's actually to, go and settle consumer debt, your credit card, things like that, that don't help. Well, I guess paying off your debt is a good thing. But if you look into the future at your 70-year-old self, they would be worse off because of the withdrawals that you did earlier on in your retirement. So yes, we've got a very poor culture of preserving retirement funds at resignation, and I think that's the message we need to be taking out there, to say, when you do change jobs, yes, you can access your benefit in full as a cash withdrawal, but you also have the option to preserve it. And that's actually what we should have been doing all along.
And you can withdraw part. If you withdraw part before you leave the company,
yes,
then the balance goes into a preservation fund, and you still got one more withdrawal prior to retirement.
Absolutely.
So you need to make sure you do that. Jordan, I've got an email from Errol in Saxonwald. He says, why is it taking so much longer to get a tax directive to move funds offshore? With the Rand weakening and the 1 million Rand foreign allowance still in place, why hasn't this level amount increased? And deal with that, the delay, and now deal with the delay of people wanting to withdraw from their retirement funds or take that one withdrawal of 30,000. They're going to have to get a tax directive as well. So how's that going to be speeded up? I mean, there's going to be a lot of frustration.
No, 100%. And I mean, again, there's been changes in the process, whether it's related to your single discretionary allowance, typically more on the foreign investment allowance side of things. But just generally speaking, looking to buy offshore currencies, there's been some changes in the process, and whether it's the Reserve Bank or SARS or both that are involved. Part of it is always going to be linked to the volumes they're dealing with. I think part of that question is also going to be, what does your personal financial situation look like in terms of the complexity or the tax complexity of your personal finances? Because understandably, that's going to, the more complex the situation will take SARS some time to unpack. But it's something we're acutely aware of. We do a lot of foreign exchange for our clients, so it's something we deal with, nearly on a daily basis. It takes, there is no speeding up the process. You tick the boxes that you need to tick, and
you wait.
And you wait.
Yeah. Harold in Glenwood says, what is financial planning and why is it so important for individuals and family? Is it only for the rich, or can a low earner or those with small assets get true financial planning? This is for you, Palissa. Now, I know this would be a whole program just on its own.
Yeah.
We've got a few more emails to get. So, executive summary.
In simple terms, it's making sure that your money follows your aspirations, follows your goals. So if you want to have a healthy, comfortable retirement, what you are earning now needs to be going there. You need to make sure that you've provided sufficiently if an emergency comes up. That's when you fund your emergency fund. So financial planning is really just planning your finances to follow those things that are important to you.
And we've got two experts here, in Jordan and Palissa. So please make use if you really need, because I always say you have to use a financial plan.
Absolutely.
Someone's got to sit down and have a look at where are you now? What's going to happen to the future? It's to calculate what you're going to need, because a lot of your expenses will fall away.
Yeah.
And you've got to correlate that need in 20 years' time with inflation with what you need.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. Then Derek in Hyde Park says, when do I need to engage a financial planner, and what are the potential consequences of not engaging in proper financial planning?
I think as early as possible is generally the sentiment. I think anybody can benefit from financial planning, whether you're just starting out in your career or whether you've accumulated quite a significant amount of assets. Financial planning can add value to, I think, anybody at any stage of life, and generally speaking, the sooner the better. I think some of the consequences of a lack of planning, for example, the house purchase, it's often one of the biggest financial purchases anybody will make in their lifetime. And it's something that needs to be planned for well in advance to save up or set aside funds for investments to reach that goal. I think just generally speaking, a lack of planning, leaving things sort of to the last minute, there's less room to maneuver to actually achieve that goal or your stated aim. So I think the sooner the better.
I'm going to make this comment. People will use accountant or lawyer, etc., and a doctor. But at retirement, they're not there.
Yeah.
The only person who's helped them do their planning and step by step are the financial planners. And people are reluctant to pay financial planners. It's a life, you're going to have a relationship with your clients for years to come. Well, I'm regularly asked, and particularly on my radio program, about what to do if you're lucky enough to get a bonus. Whilst there's a hybrid, there are 3 choices that exist: pay off debt, save, or spend. I have another suggestion for those who've got time to think about their financial position over the holiday period. That is to review your financial plans, particularly those that relate to retirement. Retirement may seem very far away, but the proverbial saying is, how time flies is real. Polissa, Jordan, thank you for joining me this evening. It's important to note that our program is to provide information and should not be construed as advice. Next week's program will be once again dealing with estate planning. If you need to get hold of me, my details will appear on the screen. I'd like to thank you for watching, and good night.